My name is Roger Armstrong. I was born a psychic child in 1930, and this series of videos are about the psychic abilities and the training and control of psychic abilities. And we talked about the square as a variety of push-pulls. So you're familiar with that. You've practiced, we've talked a little bit about intention and how your intention has to be clear and positive. Now, I should say here that when I do these videotapes, I include what I call a PIA. I put a protective intention attached to them, so they can be used only for the beneficial use for both parties. So if you use it in helping someone else, it'll work fine. If you do it to harm someone else, it will not work. Now, I don't make that distinction. The intention makes that distinction, which is interesting. I guess that's another good use of intention, as I was talking about. Now, it's good to practice with your energy. Once you really are good with the square, and to practice your intentions. And I like the street light thing. Turning those on and off is great exercise. It's easy to do. You can do it frequently. And I like to do it with little things. I have one of the people I've been working with called me up the other day. And she said, "Roger, you won't believe just what happened." And I said, try me. And she said, "I'm cooking in the morning. My 12-year-old son is at the table waiting for me for his breakfast. And he says, 'Mom,' and I turn around and he's pointing at my coffee. And my coffee is stirring itself, no spoon. And he's doing it." That's the kind of use I like with the abilities. He telekinetically was stirring the coffee. As you're walking down the street, saying hello to the trees. You don't want to be known as a kook or a weirdo. You want to do these things secretly. And in the video number 2 on the wasapsychicchild.com, I have a list of those that I made with my grandpa to help me when I was 5 years old. And most of them are very much applicable to this time. So it's stirring the coffee, the street lamps. One gal opens doors for her when she has her arms loaded with groceries. She's got it down now where she can unlock the door. And open the door. And then close the door with her arms loaded with groceries and not touching the door at all. It's the little things like that that will help your abilities grow. Now, I use mine a lot with sports. When I was a lot younger, I was a golfer. And my dad taught me how to play golf. And I went to the driving range and took lessons. And after the third lesson, the owner of that was my teacher, came out with all scruffy golf balls because I was hitting the golf balls over his fence. I was hitting 425 yards. And so he'd have me switch to a 3-wood, if you know golf. And with my 3-wood, I was hitting 350, 375. He wanted me to go pro. So he and I did a round of golf so I could show him that I really wasn't pro material because I couldn't putt. I don't know what it was about putting, but I couldn't putt. I would be on the green in 1 or 2 on a 400-yard hole. I would be on the green with a 2-wood and 6 putt. So a lot of people would play golf with me because they could win the hole even though my drives were longer than they were. There was one instance where 3 of us were out playing golf in high school, and the drive where the driving pad was on the edge of a cliff, and it was not a high cliff. It was like 50, 60 feet high. And there was a guy down there pulling out markers of some kind. And so he looked up and saw us and waved us on and stood there. And when we're playing golf together, I could help them a little bit with their focus. So they could hit, you know. So Harold hit first. And he hit like 400 yards. Then Jack hit, and he hit 425. And then I hit and hit 450. And so we're down. We walk down, and the guy's waiting for us. And he says, "I want to commend you, young men, on such fine drives." And I said, "Thank you very much." And Harold said, "What are you doing with those markers?" He said, "Well, we just had a tournament here to see who in the club could hit the longest drive." And Jack looked at him and laughed and said, "Is that the best you guys could do?" He said, "Yeah, the best drive we had was 360. And Jack said, "Well, when you hand him his trophy, tell him this story, that when you were picking up the markers, 3 high school boys beat him by 50, 75, by 25, 50, and 70 yards." That was fun. And the long drive, the long, beautiful drive, I could fade it to the right or hook it to the right or fade it to the left as I wanted. And several people used that as a political thing in my life. Heads of the department. If the dean played golf, I was always asked to play golf with the dean, or the president played golf at Purdue, and he liked to watch my drives. When I was in the Army, General Anders became my good friend because he saw my drives, and then he could still win the hole because I would 6-putt. And he asked me if I was dogging it just for him. And I said, "No way, Andy," and he laughed. So you use the abilities within focus plus intention, and it happens. That's all there is to it. It's not easy to focus. It's not easy to have a clear intention, so you need to practice. That's all there is to it. And little kids pick up on it marvelously. My friend, that's my house share person, because I have a townhouse, but it's too big for me, so I rent out part of it. And she teaches Kundalini yoga to children. And she stopped now for a while because there aren't many parents that are interested in that variety of yoga with kids. But she had, one of her first classes, she had 5 children. And she was telepathic with them, which astonished them at first. But she could assume a pose and then telepathically project it. And they hadn't put the 2 and 2 together yet. They hadn't put together the mind pictures and the physical together yet. So they were all excited to see that combination happen. So she would do a pose, and then she would direct one of the kids to make a variation of that pose. So for 45 minutes, they're doing the yoga choreography, I'll call it. And she's in telepathic contact with them for 45 minutes. Now, it was time to stop. Parents hadn't arrived yet, so she sat them down on the floor, and they spread their legs in a star so their feet were touching all the way around. She had a beach ball with stars on it, and she pushed it back and forth to play a game of just pushing. The floor had a slant to it. So at the top of the slant, you could just push the ball just a little bit and it would slowly roll down. So after a little bit, she said, let us see if we can hold the ball in the center so it won't roll away. And they said, yeah, we can do that. So she put the ball in the center, and it stayed. And she said, release it, and it rolled downhill. She said, let me see if I can hold the ball in the center by myself. So they said, okay. She said, nobody help me. They all agreed nobody would help her. She picked up the ball, put it in the center, and it started to wobble a little bit, and then it stayed. And she said to them, would you like to try that? And they all said, yes, they'd like to try that. So one by one, she would put the ball in the center, and they would hold it, and they'd release it, and it would roll downhill. Her next thing she was going to do was to hold the ball in the air and say, let's see if we can hold the ball in the air off the ground. And the parents came. So she wasn't able to do it. And she's never met with that group again. The idea here is that children, when their mind isn't cluttered with words, and they have a visual vocabulary that is being built through telepathy, have access to all of the abilities. So if we could train our children in pre-kindergarten and then kindergarten to carry through, we would have a society where everyone would have abilities that would be common, because everybody has them.